Okay then, so what I want to do today is I wanted to talk about my golf. And in the past, on previous videos, I've talked about my progress, how I went from a sort of junior golfer to a 6 handicap and a 6 handicap to a +3 handicap. But what I haven't talked about is ever sort of what happened and what was the sort of defining point for me to not play professional golf and continue that sort of potential dream that I once had. And I think it's actually a really important story and message, and this video has been prompted by a few students that I've recently met that have kind of reached out for help with golf, and I could really relate to exactly their story, and I thought I'd share that with you. So what happened for me is I got down from a 6 handicap to a +3 handicap, and then what starts to happen when you get down to this sort of level of golf is you should try and advance and take your game to a further level. And the way you've got to do that is you've got to compete against, you know, some of the best amateurs. And you would do this in international events and regional events and stuff like that. And what happens is that the golf courses get tougher, and it just didn't go quite so well. So I went from playing a lot around my home club where I'd consistently break 70 and shoot in the 60s to going on to these tournaments and sort of feel like I was struggling, right? Doing well to score in the 70s and didn't really get too close to breaking 70 enough of the time. Now what that led me to was looking at my technique, and what it also led me to, which you should never do, is comparing myself to others. So I started to look at some golfers. I was like, well, how's he so much better, and why is he doing better, and why is she doing, whoever it might be, why are they doing so much better than myself? Which then the problem is it lends you down the route of change, and you go searching for something that maybe doesn't exist, and then you start making unnecessary swing changes. And it's not the fault of anybody, because obviously every golf coach theoretically has maybe their own method of what they would like to try and see. But the fact of the matter was that I was making what I would class as unnecessary swing changes. And then I felt lost. And then when I felt lost, I felt frustrated. And then when I felt frustrated, when I started missing shots to the right or to the left or whatever it might be, and I didn't really know what the answer to that was and why that was happening, the frustration would creep in even more. And all of a sudden, this game that we once knew and loved becomes something that you start to get very frustrated with. And that's what really inspired me with golf coaching. Really did. You know, I wanted to stay in the game, but I also knew that I no longer loved this sort of idea of trying to play the game. And I was sort of vowed to myself that when I was working with students, I'd always do my absolute best to improve them. And upon reflection, I think the problem is when I was making certain swing changes, the question that I never asked was why? Why should I do this move? Why should I do this move instead of the move and the swing that I was already doing? And because I never asked that question why, I sort of became more and more frustrated. And that's what my point really for this video is, as the students that I've recently met, when I asked them what they'd been working on, they would say, I've been working on this and this, and I would say why, and there was no answer to why they'd been doing it apart from that they'd heard it. That ain't gonna work. So my advice to you guys and to those of you that are having lessons or you watch videos and you try and work on your game yourself is to continue to ask yourself why you should do something. And in my opinion, for amateur golfers, when I'm putting together YouTube videos, the why is all about impact. So I'm a big believer in making sure you get your hands ahead of the ball, because that's the only way you can really stabilise the club face and find consistency. You're never going to be consistent on a day-to-day level flicking and scooping at it. And I believe very much in this, and I believe in understanding how the arms work to square the face, and I believe very much in the pivoting action, because I know that it does things like it moves your body to drop your shoulder so you can get into these positions, which is why that's the sort of narrative and the thread. And that fundamentally becomes the why. Why should you turn the pelvis into the leg? You should turn the pelvis into the leg because it drops the shoulder down. You shouldn't turn the pelvis over the leg because it pops the shoulder up. If you pop the shoulder up, your right arm's going to straighten too early, you're going to scoop. If you can do this, then you can learn to bring your hands down here. This is why you should do these drills. This is why you should do these exercises, because they should advance you on a technical level. What you guys need to do is you need to make sure you are practicing well. So that's the big thing that I tend to do with a lot of my online students, and this is the reason why I launched this recent membership, is so that I can offer people as best structured practice as I potentially can, where I keep an eye on them, but I also offer them step-by-step guides to work on as well. My last little point that I do want to share with you, because I do think this is very beneficial, is that when I then went down the coaching route, there are lots of different, again, ideas about the golf swing. But what I would say that hangs very true, having done a lot of sort of research and understanding very, very basic sort of biomechanical movement, are 5 fundamentals. The first fundamental is your basics, things like your posture, things like your ball position, things like your grip and your alignment. You need to be pretty competent at those things. The second one is swing plane. Swing plane is kind of how the club should move to the side of the body. That's important to understand, particularly the bottom part of the swing, because I would say that the lower swing plane would also have an influence over your club path. The third one is pivot, something I've talked about a lot over my years of being on the YouTube channel. I do think you need to understand how to turn the pelvis into the leg, because for the reasons that I mentioned earlier, if you turn the pelvis incorrectly, you're going to really struggle to have a decent impact position. The fourth one's width. I think most golfers realise this, that you shouldn't get your arms too close towards your body at any stage in the golf swing. You should always be trying to maximise the width as much as you can. And my last fundamental would just be sequence. The reason why sequences are fundamental is because I think there's not one sequence. I think there are different ways of doing it depending on what the student wants. So the reason why I wanted to put this video out is because if you're feeling frustrated and a little bit lost, then just make sure you're asking yourself the questions why, and just try and take it back to basics. Don't try and make unnecessary swing changes. Go and get yourself a lesson. Ask the question, why is it going to the right? The pro will be able to diagnose exactly what it is that you need to try and work on, and you can start to build it back up from there. See you soon.